20 experts failed, but one cleaning lady revealed an incredible solution in under 1 minute. Rosa knelt on the polished floor of the boardroom. The aroma of fresh coffee mixed uncomfortably with rising tension among the 20 experts huddled around a gleaming conference table just a few floors above her. She could hear muffled voices fluctuating from frustration to exasperation. Every evening was the same, clearing trash cans and mopping up after colossal decisions while the members of corporate society rushed past her, glued to their screens. Tonight, however, something felt different. She straightened her back and considered that as her family's sole provider, she had more at stake than the gleaming floors she scrubbed. Every swipe of her mop echoed a harsh reality: her children depended on her. Laughter and joy had long been replaced with dread and responsibilities, swirling around like dust in the air. She reminded herself to be grateful for the job, yet the feeling of insignificance swirled around her like a storm waiting to unleash its fury. She could offer so much more than cleanliness, it was the knowledge cocooned inside her heart. But would they ever see her? Rosa shifted uncomfortably. It was the first time she'd glimpsed the boardroom with such clarity, understanding the stakes involved in the whispered conversations. She began to notice their hesitations, the missed connections in their arguments. It was an epiphany: the cracks in their confidence mirrored the fractures in her own. The experts were leggy elephants in a cramped room, grappling with their own egos instead of focusing on the solution that lay just beyond their reach. As she emptied wastebaskets, Rosa's mind raced. She felt adrenaline coursing through her veins against the coolness of the floor. What if they could just listen? But the thought sank like a stone in her stomach. Would they even hear the words of a cleaning lady? She shook her head, unsure whether it was foolish or brave to dare step into their world. The choice hovered like a bird in a cage: a decision to be made, a risk inherent in voicing her insight. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Rosa clutched her broom tighter, feeling the pressure mounting. The air inside the office felt thick, each minute escalating the consequences of inaction. The sounds of frustration became unbearable, igniting an urgency within her. What was she waiting for? A voice urged her forward. At that moment, she could either step back into her comfort zone or confront the vast unknown. Gathering every ounce of courage, she approached the doorway, the elegant suits blending into an immobile line of authority. The question left her lips like a tentative whisper. Would they heed her suggestion, or were they too consumed by their own importance to grant her a chance? As glances exchanged skepticism and curiosity, the weight of a million doubts cascaded over her. This moment could either illuminate her worth or drown her in their dismissal. Heart still racing, she entered, unsure whether she'd find empowerment or an eternal return to forgotten obscurity. The door held the unyielding pressure of a decision, and Rosa found herself on the precipice of change, a crossroads teetering between countless possibilities and the abyss of anonymity. As Rosa stepped into the boardroom, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations ceased, replaced by an awkward silence that swallowed her presence whole. 20 pairs of eyes, each a blend of curiosity and skepticism, scrutinized her as though she were an intruder. With her heart pounding, she forced herself to lock eyes with the one person who looked least dismissive: a senior executive named Mr. Thompson, known for his pragmatic approach. Excuse me, Rosa began, her voice wavering, a stark contrast to the polished tone of the professionals surrounding her. I overheard your discussion, and I think I might have an idea that could help. The tension in the room brimmed with disbelief and surprise. A cleaning lady, standing before the very icons of industry, offering a solution? Rosa fought back the burn of embarrassment and continued, if you're struggling to agree on the project's direction, maybe it's because no one is looking at it from a fresh perspective. I know the routines you all have, the comfort in established ways, but what if you tried something new? The words tumbled out before she could overthink them, each statement a stepping stone away from her fear of inadequacy. Mr. Thompson raised an eyebrow, intrigued more by her boldness than her credentials. And what would this fresh perspective entail? His tone suggested mockery, but Rosa detected a flicker of genuine curiosity beneath the surface. Rosa hesitated. I've seen how you call meetings again and again, yet the core issues keep repeating. Maybe instead of diving back into debate, you all could benefit from a brainstorming session where no idea is too small or unpolished. The murmurs among the experts began, whispers dripped with condescension and yet, oddly, a measure of intrigue. Gathering strength, she pressed on. You know, sometimes solutions aren't found in the depths of expertise but in the simplicity of unclouded minds. I see the chaos the way you fear disagreement more than the problem at hand. Mr. Thompson nodded slightly, encouraging her to continue. What would happen during this brainstorming session? It was a direct challenge. Rosa could feel the weight of his gaze urging her to elaborate bravely or withdraw in embarrassment. It's simple, throw all ideas into the air. Let the bad ones emerge, and don't be afraid to chase the wild ones. Sometimes, the outrageous ideas lead to breakthroughs. I've seen it in lesser settings at home. Often the children's whims yield the most practical solutions. Silence blanketed the room, giving way to an unexpected pause for consideration. They were experts, yet here she stood, offering them how to capture creativity amidst their tangled protocols. Rosa's impromptu pitch hung in the air, fragile yet undeniable. The CEO, with a contemplative look, broke the quiet, interesting premise. But what if we tried it and it fails? Skepticism shadowed his tone. Emboldened by her moment, Rosa met his stare. Then we'll still be no worse off than we are now. But what if it works? Think of the possibilities. Rosa felt a pulse of professionalism swell within her chest, an unexpected defiance against the dismissive routines she had witnessed repeatedly. The baton of power shifted. She was no longer just the cleaning lady, she was an innovator, a provoker of thought. As murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the chamber, a thrill ignited in her heart. She saw potential not just for herself but for everyone seated before her. But as the atmosphere shifted toward possibility, lingering doubts clawed at the edges of her mind. Was this transformation a fleeting moment, or the start of something devoutly personal? Ultimately, she understood that facing this improbable challenge wasn't just about the meeting, it was about her own evolution, proving herself capable in a world that often overlooked her. No longer merely a spectator to decisions, she could become an integral part of solutions. At that moment, a pivotal thought crossed her mind: what if they truly took her ideas seriously? What if her place in this realm of intellect wasn't as inconsequential as she had believed? Fueled by this query, she felt the exhilarating tug of possibility, yet another fear lingered. What if she failed them? What would become of this newfound authority resting on her shoulders? Closing in on the meeting's atmosphere, Rosa braced herself as Mr. Thompson began organizing an impromptu brainstorming session. The stakes had never been higher. How far could this go? She pondered, as excitement intertwined with anxiety, dreading both the outcome and the daring step forward she had bravely taken. Would this moment define her, or drown her aspirations? Rosa stood at the edge of the boardroom table, her pulse racing as Mr. Thompson began organizing the brainstorming session. The expectation in the room shifted from skepticism to curiosity. Sitting among a conglomerate of seasoned executives, she felt the sharp divide between her previous life as a cleaning lady and this newfound position as a contributor. How had she crossed this boundary? The thought filled her with both adrenaline and an unsettling fear of not meeting the expectations she had unwittingly set. Let us put your idea to the test, Mr. Thompson said, his tone edging on respectful as he gestured for phones and markers. The room buzzed with activity as executives began to jot down thoughts, their focus no longer on dismissal but on innovation. Rosa couldn't shake the feeling that she was an unqualified apprentice among masters. She leaned against the table, watching the confident professionals as they tossed ideas back and forth, many of which were iterations of previously explored concepts. Each validation from her peers chipped away at her lingering insecurity, a silent affirmation that her voice mattered here. But the seconds ticked by with a weight that pressed on her chest. What if they didn't listen? What if her methods fell flat? She mentally replayed the words of her old boss: the risk of failure was always the scariest part of taking a leap. As the chatter heightened, she recognized an opportunity. Can I suggest something? she said, raising her hand with newfound assertiveness. Why not take a vote? Split into groups to analyze the ideas we've all generated. We can converge afterward and see which ones resonate most. Instinctively, she anticipated a challenge. Instead, Mr. Thompson nodded again, intrigued. A structured approach to chaos, an interesting strategy, Rosa. Shall we? The groups formed almost organically, taller figures huddling near others with gleaming credentials, a vivid tapestry of intellect and experience. Meanwhile, Rosa found herself in a circle with a couple of junior analysts, their enthusiasm palpable. Unlike the executives, they didn't seem to fear the audacity of new ideas, instead, they embraced them. As they spoke, Rosa began to contribute her thoughts freely, exhilarated that they were received not with incredulity but affirmative nods. They exchanged concepts, and before long, she led a discussion about combining simplicity with complexity, a notion honed in her daily life, balancing myriad tasks at home. Their young minds were eager, mutual respect blossomed. The friction of hierarchy dissipated. The session extended beyond her expectations. Hours later, they reconvened, and a palpable energy crackled in the air as laughter trailed like residual warmth from their passionate exchanges. Mr. Thompson reviewed their findings. Surprising elements emerged that none had initially considered. Could it be that her unskilled perspective brought forth valuable insights? As the meeting came to a close, Rosa felt the rush of exhilaration morph into something deeper, a burgeoning confidence, a sense of belonging in this professional ecosystem she once believed was impenetrable. But alongside this triumph, new complexities surged within her. Could she maintain such momentum? The fear of slipping back into invisibility haunted her as they adjourned, leaving a shadow over her exhilarated mindset. In the days that followed, momentum built. A few executives sought her input on smaller projects, and she found herself continuously grappling with doubt versus self-worth. Even as voices around her recognized her contributions, another question loomed larger: did they see her potential, or was she merely a novelty to them? Rosa knew she could not let this chance to redefine her identity slip away, yet she sensed a deeper battle within her. What if engaging with them shifted her sense of self too far from the roots she had known? The longer she navigated these powerful dynamics, the more she feared losing touch with who she was before. What am I willing to sacrifice for this opportunity? She asked herself one quiet evening, confronting the shadows of her insecurities. The answer had yet to surface, but the necessity of clarity gripped her with urgency. With each passing moment, Rosa felt primed for an imminent decision that could chart the course of her evolving identity and her path in this new realm. The next step awaited her, a pivotal intersection. What would she need to face to harness this potential? Would she rise further from her origins, or could she reconcile her past with the unstoppable force she was becoming? Rosa settled into her office chair the morning after the brainstorming session, the adrenaline from the last few days still coursing through her. The way her contributions had been met with genuine interest urged her to embrace a new role within the company, yet uncertainty loomed over her like a persistent cloud ready to unleash a storm. She opened her laptop, each email marked with the name of the sender sending a jolt of anxiety through her veins. She clicked on a message from Mr. Thompson, his usual brief and straightforward tone unmistakable. Great insights during the meeting, Rosa. Let's explore your ideas further. Can we discuss this afternoon? The heart-palpitating thrill she'd experienced before was back, but this time it was underscored by a more profound doubt. Was she really ready to step deeper into this world? The clock ticked relentlessly toward her appointment, each minute injecting a new blend of hope and dread. She realized this meeting wasn't just another chance to share ideas, it was an opportunity to define her presence at the firm, to commit to a path she was still unsure she wanted to tread. As she tweaked her presentation, a nagging thought interrupted her focus: would her proposals withstand the scrutiny of the executives who had decades of experience? She shook her head and redirected her thoughts. This wasn't merely a performance, it was sharing her understanding, a blend of practical experience and fresh insights drawn from her unique background. When the time came, she found herself in Mr. Thompson's corner office, a large window framing the city skyline. He gestured for her to sit, his demeanor friendly yet poised, giving her a moment to linger in the luxury of the moment. This was her space, she told herself. Her heart began to settle. Rosa, your ability to distill complex ideas into actionable feedback was impressive, Mr. Thompson began, settling in with a notepad. "I'd like to hear more about your thoughts on the project we discussed, but I also want to know how you see yourself growing here." As he spoke, Rosa's mind raced, trying to build an image of who she wanted to become: an innovator, an influencer. In that moment, it struck her, this was her chance to speak beyond mere contributions. She could confront that inner adversary, the fear of losing herself, and redefine her identity on her terms. "I see the potential for my role evolving," she said, her voice steadying as she spoke. "I want to help shape ideas that not only resonate in boardrooms but also reflect the realities of everyday experiences. I think we often overlook practical insights when we get lost in strategic jargon." "Good point," Mr. Thompson replied, his pen poised over paper. "But it's also crucial you establish your authority. You shared brilliant ideas, now how do you plan to assert yourself in discussions with others who might challenge that?" She inhaled deeply. "I believe in collaboration rather than competition, respecting each perspective while ensuring mine is heard. It's about creating an environment where all voices can contribute, not overshadowing, but enriching the dialogue." His brow furrowed slightly, a sign that he was seriously considering her words. By the end of the meeting, Rosa felt a peculiar blend of accomplishment and trepidation. Mr. Thompson leaned back, nodding as if pleased, but she sensed unspoken expectations lingering in the air. She would need to prove not just her ideas but her commitment to the role she was carving out for herself. The moment she left his office, an undeniable clarity flooded her mind. This was about more than just her contributions, it was about embracing the complexity of her own narrative. Rosa realized she needed to cultivate confidence while remaining anchored to her origins, refusing to surrender her essence despite the evolving identity. As she returned to her desk to regroup, her phone buzzed, another email from a colleague seeking her insights for a pivotal project. Was that the invitation she needed to expand her influence further? The answer hung in the air as she stared at the screen, her fingers poised above the keyboard, torn between excitement and fear. The moment had come to confront the self-doubt that had shadowed her evolution. Would she seize it or let the opportunity slip away? With a determined breath, she began typing, ready to dive deeper into the challenges ahead. What lay beyond this door of possibilities? She was on the edge of discovery, and the next chapter was waiting. Rosa's fingers danced over the keyboard, releasing the tension that had been building since she walked out of Mr. Thompson's office. Each keystroke was a reminder that she was not just another cog in the machine, she was a thinker, an innovator ready to lend her voice to the ongoing conversation. "Hey, Rosa!" A friendly voice interrupted her flow. It was James, her desk neighbor, leaning over to flash her a quick smile. "I heard you did great in there. What's next for you?" Had it already been noticeable? The shift in her demeanor, the confidence bursting through the cracks of her self-doubt? She hoped her pulse wasn't betraying her facade, betraying the whirlwind beneath. "I'm just trying to contribute more," she replied carefully, trying to gauge how much to reveal. James assessed her, his expression a blend of curiosity and encouragement. "You'll do it. You've got the ideas, and Mr. Thompson clearly sees that. Just remember, it's good to assert yourself. Don't let others take the lead on your concepts." His words echoed Mr. Thompson's earlier caution, igniting a simmer of determination within Rosa. She needed to step up, but in a way that felt authentic to her. That balance was vital. Initially hesitant, she now found a foundation solid enough to prop her aspirations. Fueled by the reassurance and perhaps a pinch of audacity, she crafted her response to her colleague, offering her insights in vivid detail, her narrative infused with spirited observations that only she could provide. Once she hit send, an unexpected exhilaration surged through her. Seizing the moment not only fortified her plans but also sparked a burgeoning resolve to advocate for her ideas unequivocally. Days turned into a whirlwind of meetings and brainstorming sessions, where she found herself contributing at every turn. Each time she spoke, an interesting shift occurred, her colleagues sought her out for opinions and perspectives. With every interaction, something within her flipped a switch. Confidence became less of a requirement and more of an instinct, but the stakes were higher than ever. Amid the affirmations, Rosa discovered a new nemesis, her inner critic, lurking in the shadows, whispering trepidation every time a larger project emerged. It clawed at her resolve. Was she really equipped to tackle these ambitious initiatives, or merely a placeholder waiting for someone with experience to swoop in and save the day? The tension came to a head in a tense meeting with one of the heads of the marketing department. The discussion turned towards the direction of a crucial campaign that required input from various team members, and the floor opened up for questions. The first few voices echoed with confidence, seasoned assertions layered with years of experience, overshadowing her contributions like a cloud swallowing the sun. Rosa's heart raced. She hesitated, the words teetering on the precipice of her lips, tangled in a web of doubt. But then she remembered the fire ignited in her after that meeting with Mr. Thompson. The need to assert her unique insights hit hard. "Excuse me," she interjected, the disruption feeling monumental. The room fell silent, all eyes locking onto her. "I'd like to share a perspective drawn from a different viewpoint that might just enhance our approach." The rush of vulnerability met her fierce determination, igniting a buzz in her veins. She saw Mr. Thompson nodding, encouragement gleaned from his expression, anchoring her presence. As she shared her unique angle, blending experience with innovation, she felt the grip of self-doubt begin to loosen. What had begun as an intrusive critic shadowing her journey transformed into an implicit understanding of her evolving identity. She was no longer just a participant, she was a contributor. But the personal conflicts still danced in the background. With this newfound assertiveness came the challenge of navigating the responses from veterans who may feel threatened by her unconventional approach. The reality of potential backlash brought a lump to her throat as she sat back down, contemplating. The choices left to be made. How would she handle dissent from colleagues who might see her boldness as a threat? Would she have the conviction to stand firm in her perspectives regardless of the pushback? As she prepared herself for potential confrontations, a message notification flashed across her screen, a consult from Mr. Thompson regarding the next phase of the campaign. The decision to step further into her evolving role was looming, ready to challenge her established concepts once again. Her heart raced once more, caught between anxiety and an invisible thread of thrill. The next step was calling her name. Would she confront this new challenge head-on, or would hesitation take the reins once more? Uncertainty hovered, but this time, in the crystalline light of introspection, Rosa saw it for what it was, another opportunity waiting to unveil her further. Rosa stared at the notification on her screen, an invitation stretching far beyond its mere textual confines. Her heart raced, an amalgamation of fear and exhilaration pulsating in her chest, urging her onward. Mr. Thompson's request was not just a casual message, it was a challenge, a demand for clarity, for direction, for her input on the campaign they had been crafting under the weight of expectations. The thing that gnawed at her, however, was the urgency behind it. Meetings were crowding her calendar, and at every turn, she felt the scrutiny of her more experienced colleagues. Would they really value what she brought to the table? She took a deep breath, channeling the encouragement from James and Mr. Thompson. Wasn't this exactly what she aspired to? To be in a space where her voice mattered? She opened the document, her fingers flying across the keyboard with renewed fervor. The words felt authentic, breathing life into ideas that had long simmered beneath the surface. Each phrase articulated her vision, pulling from both the data at her fingertips and the intuitions that echoed within her mind. The time to articulate her thoughts was now, and she was determined to weave together a strategy that not only showcased her perspective but also reflected the company's goals. In the back of her mind, her inner critic coiled tighter, each word she typed felt like an act of defiance against her manifestation of doubt. But with each proposal she completed, a small knot in her stomach unfurled, revealing a burgeoning confidence that kindled within. Suddenly, her screen blinked, distracting her from the task at hand. A chat from James popped up. "Hey, are you ready for the team meeting later?" Rosa hesitated briefly, caught in the tension of candidness. "Not sure I feel ready," she typed back. "It's a big step for me." James's reply was instantaneous. "You've got this. Just remember, your ideas are valid. Don't let others overshadow you. Bring that unique perspective." His words were a lifeline. The meeting room was a jungle, and she felt like the outlier who'd forgotten her armor. But as she prepared her notes, a resolve started building within her. This wasn't the moment to retreat, it was a stage set for her to shine. The reminders of her worth in the workplace surged. She was not just a functionary, she was intricately woven into the fabric of this team's future. In the meeting, an air of competitiveness circulated, everyone presenting their points with vigor. Yet as the discussions drifted toward familiar but stale concepts, Rosa felt a gentle nudge within her. They were stuck in a loop that demanded fresh air, a breath of originality she could provide. As the conversation ebbed and flowed, she found her moment. "If I could add a thought," she started, voice steady and clear, unveiling her perspective with deft precision. She spoke not from a place of fear but from empowerment, threading her ideas among theirs. Faces turned in her direction, brows raised in curiosity. Halfway through, Rosa caught Mr. Thompson's eyes singling her out, a quiet affirmation that gave her the courage to push forward. Yet, the moment also sparked a fear that wrapped itself around her heart. What if they shot her down? What if they ridiculed her insight, dismissing her as naive? But she continued anyway, fueled by a revelation igniting the depths of her resolve. This was not about them rejecting her, this was about her standing up for what she believed could propel them forward. But the uneasy silence that followed her presentation felt thick and humid, and the air crackled with unspoken reactions. A colleague, known for his opinionated retorts, leaned forward. "That's an interesting take," but the moment hung in tension, like a pendulum suspended mid-swing. Would she absorb his critique, or would she confront it head-on? Rosa inhaled deeply, ready to assert herself against any pushback, ready to bridge the gap between her ideas and the resistance. Because now, for the first time in a long time, she felt the fervor of her instincts lined up against the weight of her doubts. This was not just a discussion about a campaign, it was a pivotal moment to claim her seat and stake her claim. And as the colleague continued, she knew the true battle was unfolding far beyond the campaign itself. It was about her own evolving confidence in this very moment. That realization loomed large as she prepared herself to respond. Would she be able to convince them to embrace her vision or back down, surrendering to fear once more? The outcome approached like a shadow on the horizon, demanding a resolution she couldn't ignore, beckoning her to step fully into her emerging role. Rosa's pulse quickened as her colleague's words hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in skepticism. She could sense the weight of the room's gaze, each piercing stare amplifying her doubts and lighting a fire in her gut. This was no time to capitulate. She had spent hours examining the potential of her ideas. Instead of retreating, she needed to navigate this precarious moment with skill and poise. "While I appreciate your perspective," she said, keeping her tone steady despite the turmoil within, "I believe we are overlooking a critical aspect of our target demographic that could elevate our campaign." Each syllable was carefully chosen, the rhythm a counterbalance to the fraying nerves beneath her surface. Shifting the focus to the target audience, she included data points and trends she had meticulously gathered. "Our analysis shows a significant shift in consumer behavior towards more personalized and emotionally engaging content. Rather than sticking with traditional methods, why not consider an approach that incorporates user-generated stories?" The words flowed freely now, each point resonating within her, banishing the remnants of self-doubt. The atmosphere morphed, the initial skepticism morphing into a contemplative silence. Rosa's heart beat steadily, the cadence of her voice now firm. Mr. Thompson leaned forward, his eyes focusing intently on her. This was the validation she craved, but it was also double-edged. Could she maintain this momentum? What if she faltered? "Do you mean to suggest that we actively engage our audience in the campaign rather than dictate to them?" Another colleague chimed in, her tone a mix of curiosity and challenge. It was as if the room had shifted from judgment to inquiry, each person weighing the merit of Rosa's insights. "Yes," Rosa replied, feeling a surge of confidence as she spoke. Engagement creates connection. When we invite our audience to share their stories, we not only gain valuable insights, but we also cultivate a community around our brand. As she spoke, she caught glimpses of nodding heads and contemplative expressions. This moment felt critical as synergy sparked between her vision and the team's collective knowledge. But doubt was not fully extinguished, a whisper stirred in the corners of her mind, warning her to stay humble, alert, and prepared for backlash. "That's a bold idea," the opinionated colleague replied. "But it sounds like you're asking us to trust our audience to dictate the direction?" Rosa's instinct was to defend her ideas, but that voice of caution reminded her that humility was as crucial as confidence. "No, I'm not suggesting we relinquish control," she clarified, her tone now tempered with a cooperative spirit. "Rather, we are providing a platform for our customers. Their experiences can shape what we offer, making our brand more relatable. Silence enveloped them again, but it was no longer heavy with skepticism, it felt charged with promise. And as she stood, the sensation of agency finally unfurling within her, she realized this moment was about more than a campaign pitch. It was about defining her role in the company and reclaiming her narrative moving forward. The meeting came to a close soon after, with Rosa's suggestions noted with increasing seriousness. Mr. Thompson acknowledged her contribution, a small smile curling at the corner of his lips. "Let us look into this more, Rosa. Your perspective could just be what we need." As she filed out alongside her colleagues, a spark of electric possibility filled her chest. Yet, as the excitement began to wane, a new sense of urgency crept in. This was merely the beginning, and there would be challenges ahead. Throughout the following days, Rosa poured herself into research, determined to gather every piece of evidence to support her insights. But the closer she got to actualizing her role, the more others seemed to test her resolve. One rainy afternoon, a seasoned member of the team caught her alone by the coffee machine. "I've heard whispers, Rosa," he said, eyes narrowing. "Not everyone is keen on your ideas. They think you're naive to believe in such a collaborative approach." A chill raced down her spine, but a fiery spirit was ignited within her just the same. She would not fold. The battle for her ideas and for her place was far from over. She had faced uncertainty and survived, but her journey had become a quest not just for professional growth, but also for self-definition. And as the water in her cup rippled, reflecting her determined gaze, she pondered her next moves. The time was fast approaching for her to confront not just existing doubts but also the naysayers who occupied both her mind and her workspace. Would she have the courage to challenge those voices one more time and forge a new path forward? The next chapter awaited, filled with the promise of both conflict and growth. Rosa's days were a whirlpool of fervor and anxiety as she grappled with the burgeoning expectations around her ideas. She had presented a bold vision, one that, if executed well, could transform the campaign. Yet, with each passing moment, she felt the pendulum of doubt swinging back into her consciousness. Determined to prove her worth, Rosa began assembling a dossier of data and case studies to support her argument. Late nights filled with sifting through reports and analyzing feedback became her routine. The office buzzed with murmurs of skepticism about her proposals, but she channeled that tension into her work. Each article she read reinforced her conviction that innovation thrived on collaboration. But then, self-doubt crept in, like a whisper draping over her shoulder. What if she was wrong? What if her colleagues were right? The familiar nagging sensation twisted in her stomach, and she found herself questioning her own capabilities. With a deep breath, she leaned into the discomfort. This was a pivotal moment, a test of her resolve. Rosa carved out time for a brainstorming session with a few enthusiastic colleagues who had also sensed the shift in the audience's preferences. It became a space for ideas to blossom, unencumbered by the critical eye of naysayers. They tossed ideas around, each suggestion building upon the last, igniting a spark of excitement. For the first time that week, she felt a flicker of optimism, and the radiant energy in the room became contagious. Yet even in this sanctuary of creativity, a familiar voice threaded itself through her thoughts. "Can you really challenge the established norms?" it taunted. She shut her eyes for a moment, imagining the vast yawning expanse of potential failure. But as quickly as the uncertainty gripped her heart, she turned it to action. "Let us prototype a few concepts," Rosa suggested to her teammates, her voice steady despite the rushing tide in her chest. "We could create mock campaigns based on user-generated content and put them in front of a focus group. Let's see what resonates." The suggestion hung in the air, and she caught a glimpse of doubt reflected in a teammate's eyes, but there was also intrigue. After a moment of deliberation, her suggestion pivoted the team's trajectory, and they agreed. The prospect of taking a risk lit a flame within her. They crafted a plan that was not just about presenting an idea but were now joining forces with the consumers themselves. However, the meeting with the focus group loomed ahead, and the thought of standing before critics, real consumers, made her pulse quicken. In the following days, doubt clawed back at the fringes of her confidence as the focus group date approached. She rehearsed her speech alone in front of a mirror, internally battling the voice that accused her of being unqualified. The relentless cycle of worry fed itself, yet she realized this was no longer solely about the work. It was about her evolution, her willingness to step out of the shadows and into the arena, a conflict she had to own. During the focus group, she stood with her heart pounding, ready to unveil the campaign ideas derived from their collaborative efforts. Gripping the microphone, she glanced at the faces of consumers, some skeptical, some eager, and felt a rush of ambivalence. As she began to speak, her initial falter morphed into a steady cadence. Each word carried the weight of her research, her teamwork, and her belief in collective voices. Yet, as she presented her concepts, a familiar figure from her office, the one who had warned her about naivety, sat at the back, arms crossed, an impenetrable barrier of judgment. The tension in her chest flared, but with each positive reaction from the floor, she fought back the encroaching wave of fear. When the session drew to a close, she felt both exhilarated and depleted. Feedback poured in, a spectrum of enthusiasm that revitalized her resolve, yet doubt still curled within her like smoke. As she stepped out of the room, she realized this was just the beginning. The naysayer's presence lingered. A reminder that no victory was without its trials. Would she muster the strength to stand firm alongside her collaborators, even in the face of declining support? Would the unyielding skepticism turn to acceptance, or would she have to face more challenges ahead? Rosa understood one thing clearly: the tide of her journey was changing, and she had to be ready to navigate whatever came next. Rosa walked through the office corridor, the clamor of voices and busy movements quite palpable. Her meeting with the focus group had ended, but the adrenaline rush still coursed through her veins, a blend of exhilaration and impending dread. Even in the aftermath of the positive feedback, that familiar skepticism loomed like a storm cloud overhead, and the true challenge was just beginning. As she passed by desks filled with naysayers who expressed their disdain murmured behind her, she felt the sting of their doubt as if branded on her skin. Each chuckle and raised eyebrow whispering, "She can't possibly succeed." With each step, she wrestled between the impulses of self-preservation and relentless ambition. Instead of succumbing to the bleak thoughts, Rosa decided to channel the energy into a new strategy. She curled up in her office later that evening, isolated behind closed doors filled with charts and notes. The chatter about her ideas echoed incessantly in her mind until she finally seized a pen. Her thoughts spilled onto the paper, making sense of the feedback she had received. Scribbling notes on what resonated, she dissected the positive points alongside the negatives that had been delivered with a scornful edge. That night, the realization struck her: her situation mirrored a case study she'd come across weeks ago. Rather than fighting against it, she could use it. Embracing skepticism allowed her to negotiate with it. What if, she pondered, I leveraged their doubt as a guiding force, reminding me where I need to refine my approach? With a renewed sense of purpose, Rosa scheduled a follow-up meeting, putting forth her plan to reframe the discussion in a way that addressed the concerns of her colleagues. Facing their judgments posed a risk, yet she recognized that the path to success went through confrontation. On the day of the meeting, she found herself again in the conference room, amidst familiar faces, those who had been dubious from the start. As she initiated the presentation, Rosa took a moment to ground herself, embracing the weight of their skepticism. Today, I want to explore our previous discussion, she began, her intention to highlight what had been good rather than focusing solely on the negativity. Instead of defending her ideas, she asked pointed questions that invited her colleagues to rethink the flaws in her strategy. How can we combine our perspectives to create something that caters to both innovation and the tried and true methods that have brought us success? The room shifted, the frowns softened slightly, replaced with creased foreheads and thoughtful glances. As the dialogue progressed, she was no longer a lone defender of her ideas. Rather, she emerged as a facilitator of constructive feedback, extending an olive branch to her doubters. They began to share their insights, some negative, others surprisingly supportive. With each contribution, she felt less like a target and more like a puzzle piece in a greater design. Toward the end of the session, the mood fluctuated once more and exciting tension filled the air. Rosa realized she had turned the tide, yet the underlying question persisted: would her newly gained allies be steadfast in their support? As she looked around the room, she saw faces once exuding skepticism now marked by deliberation. In that moment, a surge of hope blossomed within her, but it was tinged with uncertainty. She had cracked the facade, yet doubts loomed on the horizon. Outside, the realization that change does not occur without the willingness to engage in confrontation fueled her perseverance. However, just as she contemplated her next steps, an email notification flashed on her screen. Her director wanted to meet regarding the campaign ideas. An ominous chill cascaded down her spine, as if a new storm was brewing just as she had begun to find her footing. Could this be a turning point or a new challenge? The thought raced through her mind. Would the support from her colleagues be enough to shield her from the incoming scrutiny? Discomfort welled within her, but she knew that the moment of truth had arrived, and she had to be prepared to face whatever came next. Rosa walked into Mr. Thompson's office with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The journey she had taken from a cleaning lady to a contributing voice in the boardroom had been both exhilarating and daunting. Today marked yet another test of her resolve. She took a deep breath and steadied her thoughts, reminding herself of the progress she had made. Mr. Thompson's demeanor was welcoming, but Rosa sensed that he was sharpening his focus, ready to dissect her contributions once more. "Rosa," he began, "I've been reviewing the feedback from the focus group. Some of the ideas resonated well, but there are concerns. We need to address them before moving forward." His words hung heavy in the air, though Rosa felt a pulse of empowerment. This was her moment, an opportunity to further validate her place within this sphere of influence she had fought so hard to claim. "I appreciate you bringing this to me," she replied, her tone more assured than she felt. "I understand that skepticism is part of the process, and I'm ready to engage with those concerns." She had spent countless hours diligently analyzing the feedback, not simply as a list of negatives but as a roadmap to improvement. As she detailed her tactical approaches to the hesitations expressed by colleagues, Rosa felt a spark ignite within her. The insights flowed effortlessly. She was no longer importing other people's validations but owning her narrative, crafting her solutions. With each point Rosa presented, Mr. Thompson leaned in, notes scrawled across the page. She showcased how the collaborative approach could be tailored to fit within the existing frameworks that her colleagues cherished. "By merging their tried-and-true strategies with innovative insights, we can create something unique," she explained. "It's not about replacing their methods but enhancing them, inviting a reciprocal dialogue that fosters creativity and trust." As she articulated her vision, Rosa felt both her nerves and her doubts subside. This wasn't just a presentation, it was an unveiling of her growth, her ability to navigate the complexities of the corporate landscape. She realized that her evolution was not solely based on her technical acumen but on her deep understanding of human psychology. Her experiences with her children had woven a tapestry of empathy and intuition that gave her an edge. Mr. Thompson's brow furrowed thoughtfully, and the silence stretched comfortably in anticipation. "You're suggesting we must create an environment where feedback is nurtured. That's ambitious, Rosa." "Yes," she replied, unwavering. "Just as we brought several perspectives into our brainstorming session, we owe it to our audience to fortify their voices in our campaigns. They are not just consumers, they are collaborators." Each sentence reinforced her conviction. With a nod of appreciation, Mr. Thompson leaned back, crossing his arms. "Let us take this path. You've convinced me, and I believe your colleagues might find value in this merged approach." Rosa beamed, joy flooding through her. Recognition came not only from Mr. Thompson but through the path she had carved herself. This could mark the pinnacle of her journey, solidifying her newfound capacity while validating her worth in a world sown from expectation. Days morphed into weeks as Rosa led the charge. She organized meetings, facilitated workshops, and her once overlooked insights flourished among a backdrop of collective contributions. Colleagues who once stood skeptical began championing her ideas, curiosity shifting toward collaboration. The collaborative campaigns took root, and with each passing initiative, Rosa felt the whispers of self-doubt dissipate further into the background. "Rosa, you're a game changer," a colleague remarked one morning with enthusiasm, patting her shoulder as they reviewed data from the latest campaign. "Thanks for keeping us all grounded." In that moment, Rosa understood she had conquered not just the corporate battles but the inner tumult that had held her captive for so long. Returning home that evening, the laughter of her children filled her with a sense of unequivocal confidence. She had crafted a space within her reality, blending her personal and professional aspirations seamlessly. Her journey was no longer just about fitting into a mold, it was about recalibrating that mold entirely. Rosa had achieved a pivotal transformation. As she settled into her routine, a final thought surfaced: she needed to embrace the beauty of her evolution continuously, never allowing complacency to win. Each victory would serve as a stepping stone toward greater heights. Rosa had not just found her place in the corporate fabric, she had woven a significant thread. To everyone witnessing her journey, this was a testament to the power of belief in oneself. To the aspiring achiever, if Rosa could forge a path, so could you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second to share.